maybe those like watermelons was the one in town. I have no idea. So I just don't like them. Even the red ones. Afadhali red nang'ang'ana hii. Yeah, they do. I think they're more expensive than the red ones. The red ones are easily available. With this, higher, maybe
No, they are doing like that.
One minute. Okay, time is up. It's 12 o'clock. I have to finish by 12:10. Yes. Are you done? Okay, 2 more minutes. 2 more minutes. Now, or today by 4:15. No, we'll try and finish on time. Okay. Feedback, it's 12:05. Should we start with community leaders? The light. The light. One meeting kindly. Let's.
Yeah, so we were discussing on those issues that can hinder or why we are against GRB, and of course we took this view that we are a patriarchal society or community, and we know that we believe that men are key decision makers, so we are against women taking the place of leadership and also making decisions. Yeah, the other one is that we are against also women being financially liberal, and we believe that this will tend to make women to not to be submissive in the family. So we are against GRB, and men are also, we believe that we are of resources, men are owners of land and other resources. So there's no way a woman will be an owner of land and other key resources. So there is no way we'll accept GRB. And in regard to women owning resources, they will rather, being financially liberal, they may not be, they will forsake their work, their work at the kitchen or the kitchen responsibilities. So reasons, I think I've answered the two parts. So reasons for how influential are they? So I want to give an example. You remember during electioneering period, we were saying these elders have met, this have endorsed this, have endorsed that. So these are very influential people in the society. Yeah, you had Njeke endorsing someone else, you had the other one endorsing the other one. And then, so we have that, these community leaders have that political connection and very influential power. So in a way to mitigate this opposition, okay, of course we are not suggesting, we are just giving you, we are not saying that we are going to do that, but we are suggesting that we need to do an advocacy to shift the narrative or the beliefs, the norms that women are not allowed to own property and resources. And the other one, we may also speak of the importance or the benefit that that comes when a woman or a wife or females are empowered. That is, like, for example, if it's a family, we would say that in case of demise of maybe a man who is a sole breadwinner, is the family needs to continue. So when you empower a woman or make sure that she has property, she owns land, she does business, or she get she's employed, it means that the family will continue. I mean, yeah, the children will go to school, and I think that is it. So unless there's something else left from the group. So that is all from our side.
Thank you, our village elders, CCs, chief officers. Chief officers.
So the chief officers are the accounting officers of the departments in the county government. They are also financial advisors to the governor and to the department when it comes to projects in the departments. So what are the individuals opposed to? They would be opposed to changing the existing planning processes, as they would incur maybe cost in training of financial officers in the new concepts of gender responsive budgeting. They would also have to spend time on planning, and that becomes additional work to them. Maybe they already have a template on how they do things, they already have a way of doing things. So they would be opposed to that. And then there's the issue of political goodwill. Because these are appointees, they're political appointees, chief officers. So if it is not, whatever you're bringing, new concept that you're bringing, if it is not in accordance to the governor's manifesto, whatever manifesto that they are working with, they would be opposed to that. One being that they are political appointees, so they have to run by what the manifesto, what the government advises in the manifesto. Then there's the issue of insufficient funds, for example, for training and for data collection. If they deem it right to have data collection, then there's the issue of the controller of budget influence. being that they have a specific template guide, e.g. the Treasury circulars. How influential would are they? They are accounting officers, as we said, of the department. So whatever advice they give in regards to whatever project they deem that should be given priority, then that is what the department will run by. So if they do not give priority to such to your project, then it may not be successful. Then there are also financial advisors to the governor in the same departmental projects. And how can you mitigate the opposition? Let them facilitate certain aspects of your project or your concept. Let them explain the budgetary, for example, to let them explain the budgetary process in gender responsive budgeting. So there is that part that is professional, and maybe that is their area of professionalism. So if you would let them be engaged, let them conduct the training so that they can be able to own certain aspects of your concept. Let them conduct the trainings, and they will be able to point out the gaps themselves. They will be able to even come up with the ways to do or to mitigate whatever problems that you have brought up. Then inviting them to awareness creation. To civic education, to awareness creation forums. Then there is also civic education, civic engagement. So the way we explained it is, so there is that soft advocacy, whereby you're engaging the chief officer or the Department of Finance on a professional level, and then there's the kind of a hardcore kind of a engagement where you conduct, you bring in the public, public demand to create public demand for whatever concept that you have. That is through civic engagement, so that they can be swayed by public demand. Because as we saw, we gave an example of. For example, there is a way you can go to the public and you explain to them the importance of having maybe a certain road being constructed in a particular part of the county, and when they understand, and they will be able to have that public demand, and the governor or the chief officer, being a political office, will be able to take that up quite swiftly.
You're done? Thank you. Thank you, CECs. Sorry, chief officers. Next, CECs. And then you try and summarize quickly. Pass the mic.
Okay. So we are the CECs. So the first question is, what are the individuals opposed to? We are opposed to mainstreaming gender responsive budgeting into public finance management regulations. Main arguments and tactics. The main arguments, the first one is that GRB is a foreign concept. The second one is that GRB interferes with existing cultural structures and social norms, and also the return on investment on GRB is long-term and not immediate. GRB is a very expensive venture, and then as CECs we feel like it might overwhelm the whole budget calendar. And lastly, there is a technical capacity gap to handle gender responsive budgeting strategies. So the tactics that we are going to use to oppose, we are going to demand favors, or we shall have conditions. so that they must be fulfilled for us to adopt the GRB. And also we shall be working with the county assembly so that we are able to ensure that the policy does not approve of the GRB strategies. We are also going to ensure that we misinform the members of the public regarding the gender responsive budgeting. And we are also going to influence the county budget and economic forum, which is a very powerful policy organ in the PFM. So how can you mitigate the opposition? Capacity building of the CECs to understand gender responsive budgeting. And also we are going to partner with local civil society organizations to ensure that we work together to mainstream issues of GRB in the public finance space, and also linking the GRB with local existing concepts, such as the GRB guidelines that were developed by the National Gender and Equality Commission, because we feel like if it's a new concept, then we need to somehow relate to what is already existing, so that we remove the notion that GRB is a foreign concept. Thank you.
Thank you, CECs. MCS? Sorry, yeah?
Sorry for this, it's something which I've just thought of. In advocacy, the tactic we may use, we can embarrass the CECs. Yes, it's happened, yeah, in the 12th assembly. It happened when a lady carried a baby around the corridors, and she was speaking more than what she was doing. Yeah.
Did it work?
Yes, it worked. Yeah, we can embarrass them, or it worked. And also another tactic we can use is a demonstration. Yeah, and it can work.
Thank you. MCS?
Yes. I'll be quick. So we were the honorables. So who opposes? It's us, the honorables. And then what are the individuals opposed to? Execution of gender responsive budgeting at the county level. The main arguments that they will give for not adopting GRB, one is there will be diversion of funds from their initiatives into now GRB in their opinion. And then as presented by the CECs, again, this is a new concept and change is hard. So those are the main arguments that they will give. And the tactics they will use is, just to wear us out by constantly not taking up the recommendations. Yeah, so that's the main tactic that MCAs have. In response to how influential are they are very influential given their powers of representation, legislation, and also oversight at the county level. And then in our response to how can you mitigate the opposition, the first one was identify champions, because even the MCAs, there are those who are good and there are those that are bad. So identifying champions who advocate for, similar initiatives already, PWDs, youth already at the county assembly, so that they can now be our path into influencing other MCAs. Another one is letting them know that the world is moving towards that approach. So even in terms of what is the in thing in the world, in the donor world, and yeah. So as Lucille reminded us in the morning, speaking their language and telling them of all this funding and awards they can win. Again, as presented by the CCs, affirming them that GRB is not a new concept. They're already executing parts of it, and it's just now we are pushing for full implementation. Again, we know that the county assemblies have various committees, and we work with the committees that are specifically on budget issues. What that means is we will be trying to convince a lesser number of county assemblies, and then now they can be again our pathway into convincing all the other waheshimiwas. And then this was given by Anne, inviting the honorables into our spaces so that it's not like we are going to meet them separately, but even as we have these discussions here, inviting them into this space so that they have that ownership of the project. And then finally, which speaks to all of them, the re-election argument, by letting them know, you know, women are the majority voters in your ward, and they also have the ability to influence their children. And if you push this GRB agenda, it will increase your chances of re-election. Yeah, thank you. That's from this team.
Thank you, Aishimiwa. I need to wrap up before I bring Ebian and Hannah. Just to add on to what you said, none of you talked about media engagement. I think it's very important, especially within the grassroots, engaging the local media stations and just passing on your message to the local media stations, especially for the village elders. Because Uko Mashinani, people rely more on radios to get their information. Even local barazas, I think that's also another important avenue that you can use to advocate for matters GRB. In terms of partnerships, when you're looking for partnerships, look for strategic alliances. For example, maybe you want to partner with someone like CCGD. So maybe CCGD is good in research. So you can take CCGD in terms of research, have another partner who's good in funding, another partner who's good in advocacy and all that. So when you're looking for partnerships, look for strategic alliances with different organizations. Be more organized. Sometimes as CSOs, you find all of us to call all over. Get your acts together and be more organized, because your opponents are organized and they're well financed. So those are the people you're dealing with. Look at CECs, look at MCAs. These are people who have power and influence. So even us as CSOs and within our different spaces, we need to get our act together and be organized in how we advocate for matters GRB. And I think that's what I wanted to add. But unless, do you have any questions, suggestions, anything that you'd like to add? But just to tell you, not sometimes, advocacy is not linear. It's not a straight line like that. So you'll start at one point, then you go down there, then you come up, then you go zigzag, and you'll not always succeed. So sometimes take a break, rest, re-strategize, and then continue the journey. Yeah? Yeah. I think that's all from me. Thank you so much for listening to me. I'd like to welcome back Hannah and Ebian to take us to the next session.
Thank you, Lucille.
Sorry.
Yes, we made some last-minute changes to the agenda for today, but it still seems to be flowing very well, because Lucille's point is leading to our point and so forth. But looking back, casting back to this morning's presentation, Hannah's presentation on the Women's Budget Group, we want you to start thinking into the space of network building. We can all agree collectively that we're here with the same goal of kind of advancing GRB strategy and kind of implementing it into our work in a more effective way. However, we are kind of, how many people here have met someone new over the last 3 days? Met somebody new. Have you met somebody new? Yeah. Yeah, that's good, yeah. Because we are all kind of working on the same mission, but a lot of us are doing it individually in silos, and we want to start moving forward as a collective, because that's a better way to sort of advance our voices. It's stronger together. So you're all here today, and by invitation of CCGD, you've been selected individually, and I'd like to invite Josiah to just speak about some of the intentions that we have for the training moving forward as a collective, how we want to use all the learnings and all the ambition and momentum from 3 days, how we can use it in an effective way moving forward after the 3 days. So Josiah will just say a few words on some of the intentions we have moving forward, and then that will lead us into the exercise that we have. Thank you, Josiah.
Thank you very much, Ebian. Thank you, Lucille, for that really engaging and thought-provoking session. The reason why we're here, I was trying to think about two things. Who am I? And then the other thing is, who do I know? If we can be able to answer those two questions. So just a small exercise. Raise your hand if you're an academic or you consider yourself an academic. Rachel, Petronila, Darby, Sophia. Yes, these are people at various levels of academic pursuit, master's level, already or doing their master's research thesis and all that. Those that have already completed their masters, those that are based at the university. And when Hannah was presenting those circles in the morning, there were 3 circles of the different actors that we need to engage. And I was trying to profile each one of us. I was like, that sounds like Rachel, because it's academic, and we have the University of Nairobi as a participant in this training. Raise your hand if you consider yourself as from the civil society. Yes, that should be the majority. Yeah, should be the majority, because civil society is very passionate about these things, about inclusivity and equity, and that forms the basis, the core of the work that we do. I also consider myself as being from the civil society, so I'm here to actually benefit from the academics and everyone else. Raise your hand if you consider yourself a feminist policy maker, or you know someone in the policy making space that has feminist kind of ideals or aspirations. Wanjiko, Susan, yeah, Anita, Lucille, Andrew, and Petronila, even though you raised your hand as an academic, but I know you have influences in the county that would really be of benefit to us. So the question is, how can we best take action in those spaces that we are in? Employing the strategies that we learned today, the new knowledge, the strengthening of the knowledge that we already had. And my thinking is that this group may not wait for someone else there to create that change. We have what it takes. Yesterday I had a conversation with a few people in my table, and we were trying to think, will we wait for really this progressive president to come who's all gender empowerment? What are the issues affecting the women in this country? We are going to put them in a sort of a vision, and then I will instruct the CS Finance to, ensure the circulars actually say gender responsive budgeting is a requirement. And the answer was probably not. Probably not, because people have different ideas about how the countries should move forward. That's why we have manifestos being brought out, and most of those things don't include the perspectives that we are discussing today. So it is up to each one of us. Maybe you're that person who will speak to a certain director in the finance docket, certain director in the education docket that you already know. I have to use the example of Petronila because I met Petronila through someone else. I was actually looking for a facilitator for a program, a webinar, and so I went to SOCAT, Society of Clerks at the Table. It's a big word that personally I don't know what it means, but I know the clerks in the county assembly have this association that brings them together, and probably Wanjiko knows it better because she's worked with them before. But I know they are members of the Kenya Gender Budget Network, so I went to someone. I need someone who understands the budget process and can facilitate. So I was given someone else in the coast. That someone else said they are not available, so they told me there's someone else in Nairobi, and they gave me Petronila's contact, and I called Petronila. It was very late. The webinar is tomorrow. She has no time to prepare the slides. So she came in, and we put her as a speaker, and she spoke to in this webinar that had very many people, by the way, attending. And interestingly, that was one of the most successful webinars that we have ever done as the Gender Budget Network. And the example that I'm giving is that you know someone, and that someone could know someone. You never know where your influence will reach. But just because you just spoke to that one person and told them about the idea that you have and what you want like to do, they may not actually do it, but they know someone who can do it. So what I just want to press is that in my view, I think it's best if this group stays together. I think it's best if we stay together. We find a way in which we could be converging, monitor the budgeting process, convene, have some issues that we want to raise about that budget, package it, and then release it to the public. And each one of us in their different capacities, we have people who can write very well, people who understand the budget process in out. Case in point, Faith Ann from my BPK. People who are very good at civic engagement and public speaking, Eve Mathai. People who are very passionate about women economic empowerment, all of us. Yeah, so the point is we need to stay together. Probably at the end of this meeting in the afternoon, we would voluntarily make some commitments and give out some ideas about how we want to engage each other. But the idea that is, I think it is time that if we move together, this group, 20 or 25 of us, we could probably create small changes that will blow up into big changes. So without those remarks, I just want to thank you. I don't think there's anything that happens without reason. There's a reason why all of us are here. This meeting has been planned for quite some time. COVID happened and it could not happen at an earlier time, but I think there was a reason why it delayed for that long, so that it happens. There's a reason why it hasn't been affected by the political climate. We're kind of in a stable time right now. Despite everything that is happening. So just to thank you for creating time and giving your 3 days of your time into this. So those 3 days, I believe, are not in vain, and the rewards of it will be seen in time to come. So thank you so much. I will return it to Ebian. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Josiah. So I hope that clearly sets the intentions for this training and sets the tone for this next exercise that we want you to embark on. So hopefully everyone is in a group on the table with someone that they haven't worked with before. Is that correct? Yeah. You haven't worked with anyone on your table outside of in your real life work. Everyone's new. Okay. So we want for each group to imagine you are the new KGBN. So everyone on your table you're forming a new network, and we want you to reflect on your real life position at work, and we want you to come together and discuss what strengths you bring to the network using your position at work. And using the strengths, we want you to discuss, how would you use your position at work to your advantage in advancing GRB initiatives in your network. We want you to discuss and present the strengths of your network how it would be as a collective, using your strengths as an individual, how you'd come together as a collective, as a new KGBN network. And then we have some plenary discussions after. We'll discuss what are the gaps, what other networks you'd align yourself with to further your mission. But just to begin with, we want you to kind of discuss your positions at your work and how that informs your decision making, what your strengths are as a collective. So we'll give you 10 minutes to do that. Feel free to use the flip charts to present your ideas to us. Is that clear enough? Yes?
Any questions? Or how to strategize?
Yeah? Okay, we'll give you 10 minutes. Exactly.
like to the dead.
Got five minutes. 5 minutes. How are you, Anita? Okay, I need to cool them down. Okay, so okay. Hi everyone. Are you ready to present? 2 minutes. Huh? We'll never go to lunch if we give you 2 minutes. Okay. Are you guys ready? You ready? Okay. Hi guys. You guys are ready to present? Okay. You guys are ready to present?
We are on the last one. Just 2 minutes.
2 minutes, okay. 2 minutes. Oh, this is her natural. Guys, I'm going to invite you back into the room. Thank you, thank you. Okay. Okay, so any volunteers to start? Anyone wants to go first? If you make too much eye contact, I will just pick you. Anyone? You can go first? Okay. So what I'll get you to do is to individually stand up and just list who is part of your network. So you'll just say your role as an individual, and then I'll ask you some questions. Does that work? Guys, can we have attention? They're going to present, okay? So yeah, we started. Besides team, we want you to focus. Okay, this time.
We're back in the room.
Back in the room, okay? So we're going to present each of your roles as an individual, and then you'll explain how you come together as a collective. Yeah?
All right. So we didn't go into the titles of what you do,
Okay.
but we did mention what you're bringing to the network.
Okay.
So we had Cindy, alliance building, partnerships. I mentioned capacity building, trainings. There's also government engagement. We had advocacy, and we also have research and analysis, so that cuts across.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we also have strategy, some bits of support towards research and convenings, and we are also inclusive, so we have a gentleman represented.
Very good. Very good.
And there's also just brokering spaces, so these are spaces of engagement, yeah, at various platforms.
Thank you. Did you identify any gaps in your network? Are there some skills or experience that you are lacking or in need of to strengthen your network?
I'll invite our network members to speak to some of the gaps that exist within the network. Yeah.
What could strengthen your network?
But Andrew has given us the answer.
Okay.
On brokering, if you want to reach the multilateral organization, the IMF, the AU, you can go through his organization.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's good. Using your members' connections as strengths.
Yes.
And what would be your initial focus? So using your skills that you bring, what do you think would be your initial focus in terms of, would it be research, capacity building? What would you focus on first?
I think what we'll focus on based on the discussion is definitely research and funding for that research, because I feel like that's where our major conversation has been on, especially because we will be a new network.
Yeah.
So we were like, okay, then how do we kickstart? And the gentleman here was speaking the money language.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's perfect. Anyone have questions for?
Also, just for the research side of it is so that we have data evidence before we go, and we are now doing advocacy around GRB.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Does anyone have questions for the new KGBN network?
Maybe just one thing. One thing that we mentioned, we just happen to be already in a coalition. I think 4 out of 5.
Mm-hmm.
It's called the Okwa Uchumi Coalition, and I don't know if you guys have heard of it. So what we also discussed is complementing work in some of the spaces that are already existing. Mm-hmm. So that's something, in terms of information sharing, in terms of also strengthening some of our advocacy in terms of also now that we have to really engage audience online. So also, looking at social platforms, social media amplification, and so on and so forth. I think that's something that we also felt we could really piggyback on.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll definitely, in the last part of today, we'll look at advocacy strategies and what networks you would align yourself with. But that's good. Sort of thinking ahead. Thank you. I'll have the group in the back. I'll ask you the same. So if you could either collectively stand up and present your role as an individual, or as Faith Ann did it, kind of as someone can summarize all the skills that you bring as a group. What do you do next? This one? Oh, this one is finished. Speak spokesperson.
So for our group, we have quite a number of capacities. So we have Rachel, who will be supporting us in research. That is writing academic papers, policy briefs, and just disseminating or giving us research in a very simplified manner for us to be able to take this information to another level. We have Asha, who has the capacity to do advocacy, budget analysis. Talking about GRB, social accountability strategies. Then the training and capacity building on PFM and gender responsive budgeting. Petrofila, supporting the group to influence policy in regards to PFM and also influencing some of the specific programs and some programs that we have budgetary allocation, especially or specifically for Nairobi County. Then Daniel, who is also a trainer and a gender and GRB expert.
Thank you. So we've got research, advocacy, 2 trainers, and policy. It covers quite a varied range. Is there any gaps that you identified in your group?
Yes. One is resource mobilization. How do we get to have the resources to do the specific interventions that you're mentioning? So it's the research, the resources required to do the research, the resources required to conduct training, and all that. Yeah.
So that would be something to do with funding, finding someone who could find good funders to fund the research or training activities that you would carry out. How would you go about filling this gap?
So for some, it's integrating within the already existing interventions that you are doing as individuals in our specific areas. But now jointly as an alliance is to come up with ways of mobilizing these resources, proposal writing and all that, just to get to fund us as specific, because we belong to different organizations, but we want to work within an alliance that we have formed within this room.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the KGBN network? Number 2? No? Okay, thank you. I'll pass the mic to the group in the corner. Yeah, so the same for you. If you present your group as a collective, your strengths, the knowledge that you bring, the expertise.
We'll do it individually.
Okay.
So for me, it would be economic policy analysis. We're advising on how to anchor GRB into policies and plans, and also policy briefs. and the other one would be in data collection, the processing, analysis, and reporting to inform in the decision making.
Thank you.
I want to talk about budget analysis that we do. Why we conduct budget analysis is to identify gaps in the budget, track allocations and expenditures, then provide recommendations on how to address the gaps, so to improve service. Then the other reason why we conduct this budget analysis is to enhance civic engagement through budget advocacy, and then lastly is to close the gap between the service user and the service providers, so as to demystify them versus us, so that we utilize the available resources, we utilize the available capacities. How do we bring the mass of communities to engage with the decision makers, service providers, so that we see the value for money. The bottom line, the value for money is when we see the services being improved. Then there is accountability of all the resources that is being collected. Then coming back to her point on making informed decisions based on the reliable data. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So our group was diverse. We have economists and people who have a grounding on statistics. We have Francis, who just spoken. He has experience in budget facilitation, and so he understands budgets inside out. We have development professionals, gender and development kind of background. And so for myself, the role that I was thinking for myself is to just help people to meet. I think the sort of network, creating networks, alliances, movements, reaching out to different organizations and individuals, and just working with them on a common agenda. And this time it's gender responsive budgeting. The other thing is on the technical capacity building or strengthening or training on gender responsive budgeting that I can do with governments, county governments, with CSOs as part of my kind of action. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think mine is more of a social rather than a technical contribution. For one, I would help with public participation. Being a civic educator, I think that is one of the things that I'm most passionate about. Getting people to understand things, because I believe that when they understand, then you can be able to push your agenda. The other thing that I am also passionate about and that I would contribute to the network is media engagement. I am quite shy about it, but having been a show host in the past, also working on other shows, community shows in local media stations, and having an active network of media and online influencers. For example, the widely known Nelson Chapter 6. I think it's important to involve the media, as Lucille said, since it's an active component of civic engagement. People wouldn't know the magnitude of gender responsive budgeting unless it's made known to them.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, mine and Sophia's were kind of hand in hand.
Okay.
But also like the data collection, processing, analysis, in order to make informed decisions, which will also create a background of a more statistical. Also to input like the literature reviews that we will do as an organization that will also be hand in hand with collaboration with other organizations.
Okay.
So yeah.
Thank you. And I appreciate Monica's point about communication, because I think that's one of the skills the Women's Budget Group has, is we have all this work, but then it's kind of getting that work to the right place. So those communication strategies are definitely something that we pride ourselves in, getting our research heard. And I think recently, I guess our COVID briefings were very successful in the spaces that we were able to publish our work. And thank you for your presentation. I think collectively you all bring something very different. I would say, what is something that because a lot of the roles that we do have transferable skills. So is there something that you collectively think is your one strength as a team, and how would that how would that inform your initial focus? Like, what would be your first focus that you would embark on as a new network, using something that you have collectively as a team?
My team members could also chip in, but I think building the momentum of this training as a first, just coalescing around a cause, and this time would be to actually do and try out what we've just proposed. This means that there will be an analysis that will come out of here, because we have people who have expertise in analysis, combined with the knowledge that we now have or we have been building on gender responsive budgeting. Would be able to conduct analysis of a document and then take it through the processes that will reach the intended audience. And this means the public hearings, for the public participation forums. The first thing is actually having producing something that we can use to engage the public about. It means identifying a document and then analyzing and then sharing findings with wider audiences. Yeah.
Thank you, Josiah. Okay, we have the last group here. Similar format, you can either present yourselves individually or have a nominated speaker to speak of you as a collective.
So we have a wealth of our group, so much diversity. So firstly, I'm part of some budget regional hubs. There are 4 in total in Kenya. So what I could bring to the table is to relay this information from this training to the other co-coordinators. And I'm so happy that you mentioned that Nelson is an influencer, because he's also part of the regional hub. So I would like those coordinators to also sensitize their budget champions on the importance of including GRB. Then, as part of our center, we have a community radio station called Gito FM, and through that we are part of a network of other 54 community radio stations in the country. So just capitalizing on that network and also taking them through GRB, and in turn they can sensitize their listeners. Then our econometrician will also bring the aspect of quantitatively assessing and the impact of gender policies on different macro sectors of the economy. Then there's also going to be input in translating statistical information into simplified versions, because it can be a lot to handle. So just kind of breaking that information down so that it can be palatable for the general public. Then using data to inform the bridging of gaps in GRB by developing a database. So basically pulling information, like I'm sure different organizations are handling different areas or sectors. So just capitalizing on that. For instance, since I'm working around social protection and I'm not so privy to information on water and sanitation, I can reach out to another organization that works around that area, so I don't have to like duplicate the information. Then also linkages with policymakers, legislators, the private sector on policy formulation and implementation. Then we can also have some input in developing a dashboard whereby stakeholders can run a search and get the information that they're trying to retrieve. Also another area of ensuring that we do not really struggle to have this information. Then the use of social media. If we could all be like tagging each other and retweeting this information, we could get to our target audiences, and therefore people will be more sensitized on GRB and its importance. Also, we have some input in skills training and budget analysis, tool development, data analysis, advocacy and community engagement, and strategic partners. Yeah, so one of my colleagues will speak on the gaps.
So as you've seen, most of what we have, actually we can make do with the resources that we already have at hand. For example, social media platforms. But when it comes to some of these skills where we really have the skills to conduct the training, we have the skills to do the community engagement, but we do not have the resources to go to the communities and sensitize the common wananchi on what gender responsive budgeting is, influence them towards public participation and the like. So our gap, or something that we felt we would need support on, is on the resource mobilization part of it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. That was a great presentation. I think resource mobilization is something that we can relate to at the Women's Budget People. Funders we have, the ideals that they have, and if we align with them as well, because I think when I was thinking of getting into this sector, you think a lot about policy, you think about research, but you don't think much about funding as an avenue of getting into this sector, and it's something that I think is overlooked, and it obviously informs a lot of the decisions and plans that you can make. So I think resource mobilization is something that's probably shared amongst all the different groups I've presented today. I think that's, yeah, thank you. I think that's sort of set the seeds for what we want to continue to do past the training, thinking of how you can use the skills that you have to your benefit, and kind of networking with your individuals and seeing how you can come together as a collective, even if you are lacking, as you said, in one area, you can use what you do have to kind of take your initiative forward. Any sort of questions that anyone has on anything that's been presented? Okay. I think that's a good time to break. Thank you for all your efforts. It's really appreciated, all the work that you put in your presentation. So thank you. We can break for lunch. We have an hour. What time is it now?
We come back here at 2:15. We're going to put everything to use, this is next week, in one big advocacy strategy exercise. So eat well and come back focused. Thank you very much.
We'll do it after.
Afterwards, not lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.